a flash of light. A car vanishes, leaving only fire behind. It's one of the most iconic images in cinema. But the real spark wasn't the special effect. It was the paradox hiding underneath. Back to the Future didn't define time travel by following the rules. It defined it by breaking them. The greatest time travel movie ever made has the worst time travel science. And that's not a flaw, it's the feature. Most time travel stories pick one model and stick with it. Bootstrap paradoxes, or grandfather paradoxes, or many worlds theory, etc. Back to the Future said, why choose? And broke every rule at once. Here's the impossibility. 3 contradictory models running side by side like gears in a single engine. Gear 1, ripple logic. Marty interferes with the past, and the future collapses in real time. The Polaroid in Marty's hands visibly erases his siblings, cause and effect as a visual countdown. Gear 2, causal loop. Doc survives because of a warning that exists only because it stops the event that creates it. Gear 3, butterfly effect. Marty takes the hit instead of George, and the timeline fractures. In physics terms, these 3 models can't work together.
When you want to have time travel in your movie, you have to make some choices about how it works. In my mind, a movie that would be the greatest challenge to turn into something logical would be something like Back to the Future, and let's just say it was a little freewheeling when it came to the logic of time travel.
And yet, in Hill Valley, they hum together. Contradiction doesn't derail the story, it drives it forward. But simply stacking contradictions isn't enough. Most films would lose audiences in a maze of rules and explanations. Back to the Future doesn't. It makes the impossible crystal clear. The secret is a triad of clarity. Image. A family fading from a photo makes cause and effect instantly visible. Performance. Doc Brown's wild-eyed urgency turns complex mechanics into something you feel as much as understand. Emotion. Marty isn't calculating physics. He's watching his family disappear, and we share his panic. Together, image, performance, and emotion turn contradiction into story. The audience isn't buried in logic. We're anchored at every turn. That's why the paradox doesn't break. It lands.
That's the whole thing about Back to the Future. People say, oh, it's this big science fiction movie. It's time travel. No, it's not. It's a story about these people. We love Marty. We love George. We love Lorraine. We hate, but we love Biff. And of course, Doc Brown. Everybody loves Doc Brown.
But here's the deeper question. How did 3 impossible physics engines create something that feels more true than actual science? The answer lies in the human brain's relationship with contradiction itself. Here's what psychologists have discovered. Our brains are wired to crave resolution. Psychologists call it the pattern-seeking reward, the dopamine hit we get when contradictions make sudden sense. Back to the Future weaponized that by tying every paradox to a character we cared about. Marty's existence problem resolves when courage sparks love. Doc's death problem resolves when friendship transcends time. George's confidence problem resolves when potential finally becomes reality. The science is impossible, but the feelings land like puzzle pieces snapping into place. Psychologists describe a need for cognitive closure, a desire for definite answers when faced with uncertainty. And in Back to the Future, those emotional resolutions bridge the gap between what's logically possible and what we psychologically need. It taught us how a paradox should feel, not just how it should work. Every time travel story since has had to answer the Back to the Future question. Will this make me care about the paradox, or just understand it? The movie that broke physics fixed something more important. It fixed how we feel about the impossible. Once audiences learned to feel paradoxes, the genre rewired, and everything after 1985 shows it. There were exceptions, but before 1985, the mainstream used time travel to test ideas more than relationships. The Time Machine focused on social commentary. Star Trek used it for moral lessons. The Twilight Zone treated it like an ironic lesson from the universe. Notice what's largely absent: heart. Characters didn't go back to fix their relationships. They went back to fix society, history, or the future of mankind. Then Marty McFly changed everything by making it personal. Back to the Future created what we now recognize as the modern time travel story structure. Character has an emotional problem. Time travel becomes the solution. Paradoxes create stakes. The outcome is ultimately defined by emotion. This wasn't just a new approach. It was a new language for time travel stories. Every element became a building block other filmmakers could use. And then, everyone started copying the homework. But here's the fascinating part. They weren't copying the science. They were copying the feelings. Groundhog Day took the time loop and made it about self-improvement. Same emotional structure, different temporal mechanic. Bill Murray doesn't need a DeLorean. He needs therapy, and time itself becomes his therapist. Looper borrowed the causal loop, but made it about confronting your worst self. The Butterfly Effect took chaos theory and turned it into a horror story about trying to fix the past. Each film found new ways to use Back to the Future's emotional blueprint. Avengers Endgame uses time travel so characters can process grief. Interstellar bends time, not to explain physics, but to show a father's love across dimensions. Even stories that get the science right still use Back to the Future's emotional architecture. Primer may be the most technically detailed. But notice how it focuses on the breakdown of friendship. The relationships matter more than the time machine. The template became so dominant that even hard sci-fi couldn't escape it. Time travel stories had to have emotional cores now. Back to the Future made it impossible to treat time travel as pure intellectual exercise. After 1985, time travel wasn't about machines. It was about people. Every time travel story since has had to answer the Back to the Future question. What does this mean for the characters, not just the timeline? Back to the Future conquered storytelling by making time travel human. But there's one final layer that reveals why this approach created something timeless. Back to the Future discovered something that goes beyond storytelling technique or cultural influence. It found the secret of normalizing paradox, turning contradictions into something the audience could accept, even embrace. This is why we're still talking about it 40 years later. Not because it got time travel right, because it got life right. Here's the deeper truth hiding inside all those paradoxes. Back to the Future isn't really about time travel at all. It's about the one-time machine we all actually have: memory, regret, and the wish to change what we've done. Every parent who watches George McFly find courage thinks about their own moments of missed opportunity. Every person who sees Marty fix his family's problems dreams about healing their own broken relationships. This is why the broken science doesn't matter. The ripple effect, the loops, the butterfly chaos, they're not physics equations. They're emotional equations that everyone understands instinctively. A fading photo says, choices have consequences. A letter from the future says, love transcends time. One punch says, courage can transform a life. This is the real paradox at the heart of the film. The movie achieved authenticity not through accuracy, but through honesty about what we actually want from our impossible dreams. We don't want scientifically perfect time travel. We want emotionally perfect second chances. Back to the Future gave us the second without pretending to offer the first. So here's the final paradox. Back to the Future defined time travel by never really being about time travel. It defined it by being about time. The time we've lost. The time we want back. The time we hope to have. The movie that couldn't get time travel right got something much more important right. It figured out how to make the impossible feel inevitable, the broken feel whole, and the contradictory feel true. 40 years later, the lesson isn't about flux capacitors or timelines. It's about us. We don't live by perfect physics. We live by imperfect choices. Through Marty's journey, we see that the contradictions we fear might destroy us can actually transform us. He lived through every paradox that should have unraveled his existence. Fading from a photo, saving a friend with a letter from the future, watching one collision ripple into an entirely new family. But those contradictions didn't break him. They rebuilt him into someone better. And like Marty, we discover that contradiction isn't what breaks us. It's what makes us human. We are all walking paradoxes, fragile and resilient, confident and insecure, dreamers and doubters. The moments that feel the most impossible to reconcile often become the ones that define us. Our contradictions don't need to be solved. They need to be lived.